Just gonna wait for myself to pop up over here. I'm not sure. Will I be able? Will I not be able to go live? All right, either way, I'm live right now. It's the Nazarite, bringing you Hebrew lore from days of yore. And I thought the kids would already be asleep by now, but I'm hearing on the baby monitor that they're still falling asleep. So I need to be attentive and see if, wait, hang on, let's mute myself here. I need to see if, well, there's a chance I'll have to leave, but let's just keep on going. So first of all, James Bong is here. Hello, James Bong, and Sneezer is here. I mean, I already hit live. I do want to go live. I hope I won't need to leave in the middle and just cut it off. But if I do leave, it'll be just for a minute or two tops, maybe even less, and I'll be back, because sometimes he just needs, the pacifier, and that's it. But let's hope that I'll be able to go live. Now, Robert and Paula Harrison asked me to do a reaction video. First of all, there are a few on the backlog of reaction videos that I'd like to get to, and they recently wanted me to react to the what would it be? The artist's depiction of the first chapter of Ezekiel, right? The Merkava, as it's known. And yeah, yes, kids come first. Hey, Ariel Marshall is here. Good to see you, man. Good to see you, all of you. I'd like to do that, but I didn't set up the. I'm doing it through the mobile and not through the laptop, and so I can't do the. I'm not using the streaming software. I'm just going live on the phone. So hopefully next time I go live, I will be able to set it up beforehand and we'll be able to go through one of the reaction videos that's on the list. Because I wanted it to be a regular thing, and I only did 2 so far. But I wanted just to say that that's on the list. And I have not forgotten, and I still do want to react to things, because why not? Okay. I like your reaction video, did great with mine. See, the thing is, yeah, Ariel, yeah, I prioritize, what am I gonna do? Now wait, so Sneezer said, I heard someone theorize 3i Atlas is directly above Jerusalem at its closest approach to Earth. Well, it's not really going to approach. So, I mean, it's close to, above Jerusalem would be relative to its distance from the Earth, and it's staying pretty far from the Earth, if I'm not mistaken. But okay, he says, after an odds surpassing flyby of 2 out of 3 planets and Earth opposing parhelion. I don't know what parhelion is. Hang on, I'll Google that term right now. Parhelion is a point, says Google, in an astronomical body's orbit where it's closest to the sun. Oh, okay, so what you're saying, if I'm understanding you correctly, is that at the point where it's closest to the sun, it will be... Wait, let me read it again. He said that somebody theorized that 3i Atlas, which is, I think, categorized as a comet, but I know that it's a dispute among the researchers and astrophysicists or astronomers, whatever the case may be, on what is the origin of this celestial body. Is it a comet? Is it something that was made, or it was something that was created? But so he says, directly above Jerusalem at its closest approach to Earth. Okay, I mean, I still don't understand what the theory, what does it entail? Let's just say for all intents and purposes that it will be directly above Jerusalem, and let's say that it will be flying as far as it will be flying towards Earth, right? Flying by the Earth. But so what does that mean really? I honestly have no idea. I really don't. So James Bong says, Shalom from West Kentucky. And welcome back. Thank you, thank you. It's nice to be here again, going live. It is nice indeed. Sneezer says, at the moment we're approaching it. When it was closest to the sun, he says, we were on the other side of the sun. So not only a 3-planet flyby, but also avoiding Earth. Oh, he doesn't know the story of the three wise men following the star, does he? Well, yes, there were three wise men carrying. Well, I mean, I know that they were later bringing gifts to Bethlehem, to who they thought would be the newborn king. And yes, I know there was a star, and they followed it to the manger. Is that it? If I'm not mistaken. And the star rested upon Bethlehem. Right. So yeah, Bethlehem. Um, okay. Well, it will. Three-Eye Atlas will definitely be a shiny object. Who were they stalking doesn't sound that wise to me. Ariel says. Doesn't sound wise to Ariel. Um, right. I mean, I think, what is it? They were actually on their way to one thing, but then the star pointed them towards another thing. I don't recall exactly. James Bong says, I don't have to worry about seeing stars. Not only do I have two pieces of shooting star in my collection, but I can usually see them fall whenever I want. Yes, they were seeking the new king. Oh, okay, so they were seeking the new king to begin with, you're saying, and then they ended up in Bethlehem following that star. Well, okay, but still, let's take it further. Let's say that the New Testament's account of what happened means something. Sure. Physically and metaphysically. And let's say that Three-Eye Atlas is this shiny heavenly body that will be situated above Jerusalem. It's like, okay, where is this leading to? They followed it to the Jews who told them he'd be born in Bethlehem. I see, okay. Aya ibn Aida nun achat tet. How you doing? Blah, says Ihan ibn Aida. Levites, I believe, said Sneezer. James Bong says, I have one giant piece in the Field Museum in Chicago, and I have the other two. So you actually have a piece of a meteorite. That's pretty cool. I'm recalling in the series Avatar: The Last Airbender that Sokka of the Water Tribe made his sword out of a meteorite. That was a pretty cool sword. He called it his space sword. Hang on a second. Oh, okay, they seem to be settling down. Okay, that's cool. All right, a couple of comments from the recent days. So yeah, KJB says walkabouts, just ordinary places, swing parks, shops. You may even find a new little dog or cat, whatever. So yeah, the idea came about that I should maybe take the phone and just walk around the neighborhood and do like a walking tour of different places. Um, but I'm thinking, I mean, first of all, there's that. Maybe I'll do it. And second of all, if I am going to take my phone and go places, like I said in the last stream, I'd want it to be places that have more significance rather than just around the neighborhood. As for finding a new little dog or cat, we would love to have another doggy at some point and live with another doggy. But right now, with two under 3 years old, the older ones are older, but the two under 3 years old are a handful. And it will be a bit of time, I think, until we will actually be able to take on the responsibility, especially since it will be me who takes on the responsibility, as before, of the vet appointments and walking and buying the food and so on and so forth. And I'd want to take a break. But yeah, we definitely are interested in living with a dog again at some point. Mashariel said, great dialogue. I appreciate your humility and balanced conversation. So this is a Nazarite that I got in touch with recently. He said that he was subscribed to my old channel years ago, and he wants to connect, and I do too. I love connecting with other Nazarites, be they here in Israel physically or digitally. So he says, on the children of Ham, the lineage is in Torah itself and directly relates to the northern African nations. Right, so we were talking about the origins of Ham, Shem, Yefet, right, and the people, rather, the origins of the people from the three brothers, the three sons of Noah, and who's who and what's what. And obviously, as I said before, there are different opinions, and there's a great controversy and a debate on whether Ham is Africa or whether or not it's, or whether it's Right, is Yefet the Europeans, and that whole thing, right? And we traditionally come from Shem, Sem, right? Anti-Semite, Semite, Shem. It has to do with that. So he says, Kush, Mitzrayim, etc. Right? Kush, which is Africa, Egypt. Well, Kush is Ethiopia, but Kush is Africa at large. Mitzrayim, which is northern Africa, and the Knaanim, the Canaanites. He says, were outside of their inheritance, occupying the land of Shem unlawfully and committing abominations. Right. So he's talking about why it is that the children of Israel were allowed to conquer the land of Canaan and banish, or eradicate rather, the 7 nations there, and and wage war upon the others. And I still maintain, so do I would think historians and sages across the generations, that we can't know for a fact. It's like we have the traditions that we have, and the ideas of passed down, right, down the line, but to know with certainty after so many years, it's nigh impossible. One of the things that Eliyahu, or Messiah, is said to do, is it Eliyahu? Yes, probably Eliyahu, Elijah the prophet, right, who didn't die according to the Bible, is to bring people back to their root, right? You belong to this tribe, you belong to that tribe, you belong to this nation, you belong to that nation. Hello. All right, he continues and says, people tend to cling to ideas that serve their own agenda instead of humbly seeking the truth. Now, there's a lot to that, and I know I'm guilty of that as well. We all have that confirmation bias, or rather confirmation biases, plural. And it's not even a question of whether or not we like... Yeah, 3 of them are up there. It's not even a question of whether or not we are willing to be challenged, because, I mean, some people like it more, some people like it less, some people enjoy a debate, some people enjoy being challenged. Other people are very staunchly sticking, no matter what, to their ideas, their arguments. And he says people tend to cling to ideas that serve their own agenda. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I mean, I know I do that. And this is why I am willfully blind and willfully ignorant, pardon me, of certain things because of that. Now, he says, instead of humbly seeking the truth, and this of course calls into question the idea of what is the truth and what is humility, and how does one seek the truth in humility? What is it that you give up? Do you give up everything and you go in like carte blanche, completely blank slate? He says, all right, so yeah, he said he remembered me. Yefet, it is written, did not appreciate his land inheritance and pitched his tent among his brothers. All right, well, it still doesn't speak too much to who the descendants are, right? And that was the debate that was going on last, what was it, Wednesday, Thursday, whenever it was. All right, let's continue here in the chat. James Bong says, yes, they are very cool to see them come in. It took me 2 years to find them. James Bong. James Bong. Yeah, he's been coming to the channel for months and months.
I haven't met James Bond yet.
Now wait. What do you mean? It took you 2 years to find them? Meaning what? It took you 2 years to see a meteorite crash and then go and fetch the pieces? Or did you happen to know that there was an area, a geographical location of some sort where there were buried pieces of meteorite and then you had to go and find them? Or not buried, whatever they were. Lots of swords made out of obsidian over myths. Star metal. Yeah. Sneezer, you're absolutely right. It makes a lot of sense that would be the case, especially in myths. With one magnet and a lot of time. I see. So you were just searching in areas where it was purported to have fallen, right? Where a meteorite was purported to have fallen? Okay. R.I.P. Pinky, says James Bong. Yes, indeed. She was a good doggo. Yes, she was. I loved having her as a companion, even though sometimes she was a stinky pinky winky. It was It's something special to live with an animal. It really is, especially one like that. Okay. So I don't know, I'm not sure if it's Ukrainian or Russian, but I'm going to translate what this is here. Hang on a sec. Translation. Please slow down. I'm writing it down. That's what he said. That's what it says there. Oh, okay. And then he said slow down. He is writing it down. Okay. I mean, I'm going pretty slow. So I'll catch you when I catch you, down the line here. Sneezer says, I recently found out Shaddai, right, it's one of the names of God, has Gematria of 314, thus making El Shaddai, El the Eternal. What do you mean? Oh, okay, pi, 3.14, okay. Kitov Adonai, Chesed, yeah, Chesed is 72. We'll go on. Again, with Gimatriot, it's a nice addition, as I love to say, right? And it's a nice way to start or end a teaching, but I don't put too much stock by Gimatria in and of itself. It has to be attached to something. But yes, Shaddai being 3.14 is interesting. But as for the 62, 72 Gimatria that follows, I don't quite understand. So I'm not sure if I'm missing something. But okay, so these are, let me know. James Bong said, I seen it come. It exploded over my head a few hundred feet, and it took me 2 years to locate it with a magnet and patience. Wow. Broke into 3 pieces over me rather than a huge explosion. Well, meteorites tend to break up, and so they end up being small pieces, right? But that's really great. Now, I'm curious, James Bong, how often would you set out with your magnet, right, your metal detector, in order to find these fragments of rock, of space rock? Sneezer says, yes, sorry about the 6272. I don't quite get it either. Something about reciprocating a multiplicative or placitive. Well, that just went way over my head. Way over my head. The reciprocal ratio is like half of pi or something. I have no idea. I have no idea. I really don't. I wouldn't know how to even start. Because like I said, I enjoy Gimatria at the beginning, at the end, as an addition to something, but I don't quite get it when it's a standalone thing in and of itself, right, as such. I just seen the path it was on very clearly and knew the linear path to take. Voila. Ariel says, can you teach us something from this week's parasha, from this week's Torah portion? Well, I was learning something on Shabbos from the Ramak's Pardes Rimonim, and he was discussing there the term atar, Ein Tav Resh. It says in this week's Torah portion, Vaye'etar Yitzchak lenochach ishto. Right, Yitzchak and Rivka, Isaac and Rebecca, they had trouble conceiving. And it says that, you know what, I'll search for the JPS precise, I'll search for the precise translation in the JPS Tanakh. Vaye'etar Yitzchak. Okay, it's Genesis 25:21. 25:21 JPS version. Hang on a second. JPS Tanakh. No, it's not 25:21. It is? Yes, 25:21. And I'm reading here the verse. And Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife because she was barren. And the Lord let himself be entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. So, entreated. Let's look at the definition of that. Ask someone earnestly or anxiously to do something. That's according to the Oxford Dictionary. That's to entreat. In Hebrew, the word is vaye'etar. It's not vayevakesh, to request, It's not vayishal, to ask. It's not vayitpalel, to pray. It's vaye'etar. It's a specific sort of verb. And what I read yesterday in the Pardes Limonim, when he was going over the term atar and the origin, right, the root of ye'etar, that he entreated, right, entreat, atar, and he said that that is the sort of thing that goes up, let's say. It's a sort of revelation from human beings that goes up all the way to the top of the tree of life, all the way to the crown. So ask someone earnestly or anxiously, says the Oxford Dictionary. And Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife because she was barren. And the Lord let himself be entreated of him. I like the way that it says it there in the translation. Now I'm gonna look for a second in the original Hebrew, right? Vaye'etar Yitzchak. Okay, ויעתר יצחק לאדוני לנוכח אשתו כי עקרה היא ויעתר לו אדוני ותהר רבקה אשתו. So we see that Isaac entreated the Lord, and the Lord became entreated, right? Isaac prayed and requested and asked earnestly, and God, by the same token, it didn't say that he gave him, right? It said it uses the same root, the same verb, the ayin tavrej, vaye'etar vaye'ater, meaning that Isaac did something and sent it up, and God's revelation did something and sent it down in the very same way. And the Pardes Limonim, you know what? Do I have it here? No, I won't open it now. I mean, it is right here, but I won't open it now. That idea of atar. Hang on a second. I'll look. I won't open the book here, but I will. Let's see. I have it here. I have the digital version right here. Oh, hang on a second. What's going on here? Why can't I reach this? The website that I usually use is no longer there. That's odd, but hold on a second. Let me see. Let me see. If I can do it this way. Yes, I can do it this way. It's on, I'll find a different website. Here, atar. אתר, מלשון ויעתר. ונתבהר בזוהר פרשת תולדות, כי התפילה הגיעה על כתר עליון. So, Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, about this verb, atar, right? It says that Isaac entreated, and the Lord entreated Isaac, right? By the same token. And to entreat, they say, is to sort of borrow, right? And seek a path. So there's the idea of a prayer that you utter, and the different ways in which you focus your mind, if you're a Kabbalist, let's say, to certain names and certain divine revelations in order to bring about a connection between the masculine and the feminine divine revelation and bring something new into creation with your prayer and awaken the higher attributes. And you are doing something from bottom to top, and something is thrown back at you from top to bottom. And what Yitzchak did by the idea of the prayer going up, all the way to the crown, ad haketer, he says. And that idea of why is it, they could have said, vayitpalel, he prayed. The Torah could have said, vayevakesh, he asked. It could have used many other verbs that Isaac requested and asked and sought, but the Torah used atar because it's a specific way of praying. It's a specific sort of prayer that seeks a path to the highest sphira, the highest divine revelation, the root of all. And the reason why Yitzchak had to reach all the way up to the root with his prayer, praying for children, is because according to the Talmud in Sanhedrin, there are three things that are not dependent on action. They are dependent on that higher root. Action is something where you have a duality, action and inaction. That's already a duality. That's already a two, right? But we're looking for that point where it's one. We're looking for the crown. In that point of keter, that point of the crown, it's banei chayei v'mizonei. That's what it says in Aramaic, which is children, life, and sustenance. Three things, banei chayei mizonei, that are not dependent on your actions, but are dependent on that root that is not a duality, that place where it's all one. And so if you are going to pray, let's say for sons and daughters, as Isaac did, he went about it in such a way that his prayer reached all the way up, right? It sought a path through the different divine revelations from kingdom or kingship all the way to crown, from Malchut to Keter. And it's that idea that if you're praying for a certain thing, to know how to pray in such a way that it will hit the right spot. And this is why, even though prayer of the spontaneous nature, hitbodedut as it's known, is something that I do regularly and that I value greatly, I still understand how our sages that over the years constructed the Siddur, right, the prayer books, it's all Kabbalah. It's all very Kabbalistic in its nature. And just because we don't know, those of us who are not Kabbalists, just because we don't know necessarily what names to focus on and how to bring about that connection with our mind, the words that we utter were created for that purpose. In other words, you have Sidurim, right, prayer books of Kabbalists that are full of names, full, tons of names all the time, because every single word, every single letter, every single point of punctuation or melody is supposed to awaken a certain divine revelation through your action. And the prayer books, I barely use them, but I do understand their strength, and I do understand that the people who wrote these prayers down, some of them go back even to the First Temple era, it was because there was a Kabbalistic nature to these prayers, and they wrote them down for the masses to read. So even if they don't know precisely the different names that they ought to be contemplating and meditating on, by saying it together as a congregation, all of them together can do what I alone cannot, right? What the individual cannot do alone, the congregation does as a whole. That's why the congregation is such a powerful thing. That's why having a minyan, let's say, of 10 people is such a powerful thing. Because nobody's perfect, but together we can be perfect. There can be a kind of shade of perfection. So Yitzchak, when he was praying for children, he prayed in such a way where it went all the way up to Keter. And that's why the Torah says Vaye'etar, and that's why the Torah says in that same verse Vaye'ater, right? That he entreated, and God, what does the JPS say? God let himself be entreated. I like the way that they phrased it there. Okay, let's continue. Let's continue. Okay. So Ariel Marshall, that was a real rant or ramble. I'm not sure if that's what you were looking for, but that's just one thing that is from the beginning of this week's Torah portion, and it coincided with me reading yesterday in the Pardes Limonim. So I figured I'd talk about that. James Bong says, but had no intentions prior to it as it was unexpected. So look at that. So a meteorite hit, and you, for 2 years, were seeking it. That is wonderful. That's really great. Circle it. It is in him. I don't know what that verse, is that a verse from somewhere? Is that a teaching of somewhere? Let's see. Because Sneezer put it in quotation marks. Circle it. It is in him. I'm not sure what that is. Could you clarify? Or maybe you did later. You guys continue. Did you separate, Argo? Hi, Argo. Did you separate your dreads, or did they grow naturally like that? They look great. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's just natural hair. So for the first years, maybe even the first 7 or 10 years, I did separate rather diligently. But then, I guess 7 or 8 years into it, I started slacking off. I separated initially because my wife entreated me to have it be a more normal appearance. She said, grow your hair out have dreads if you want, but keep it neat. And I, for a time, did keep it neat. And then for different reasons, I just stopped separating, basically stopped separating. So I separated in the beginning, but recently I have stopped separating almost altogether, much to her dismay and much to my shame, because I did not live up to my word, and I enjoy growing my hair naturally and letting things congo and dread up like that, but I don't like the fact that she requested this of me and that I failed in doing it after a while, and that I became lax in my separation of the dreads. So, I mean, do with that what you will. But I appreciate it. James Bong says, what is your opinion on the Phoenicians, as they did not call themselves this, as it is a Greek word for purple? So I don't know much about the Finikim, as they're known in Hebrew, because I don't know a lot about their history. So I have no opinion because I haven't studied them. I know that they existed, and I know that the language, the Phoenician language is also from right to left, right, like Hebrew, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't know much about them. If at any point I did know something about them, that point is long gone, and I must have forgotten because I didn't repeat and go back and reread it, whatever it is that I did learn about them, because the Phoenicians and those more ancient folk did come up in the different videos in this channel. So I'm sure that I at some point did some research about them, but I don't remember, so I have no opinion right now. Ariel says, think most people here in Spain are descended from the Phoenicians, if memory serves me correctly. James Bong says, well, that could be, but very diluted. Do you mean diluted or diluted? Meaning that over time it became sort of not the real deal. So Neither says child and sustenance is the Trinity. Well, I'm not following you there. James Bong says, that's how I actually seen the shooting stars break in front of me pretty much all the time. I'm usually always in prayer mode and analytical thought. Now, wait. Prayer mode and analytical thought. Do those two coincide for you? I'm curious. Because I suppose that's a very technical and Kabbalistic way of looking at it, because some Kabbalists are very technical. Some Kabbalists are all about right, this name here, and you draw in breath on this word, and you turn here on that word, right, and here you bow, and here you become, and here you straighten up. And now, some of these things have made their way to the different peoples, right, Ashkenaz, Sfarad, Teiman, the different people, and they do have, like I said, all of the prayers that are handed down, or the more ancient ones definitely, but even later, the prayers that were written down in the prayer books that we still have nowadays, at least in the Orthodox one. I can't speak to the Reform one or the Conservative one or the Reconstruction one because I haven't read them. But I know that the Orthodox prayer books, sure, you have some additions from recent times and from the last few hundred years. Those also have a Kabbalistic origin and meaning, especially if we're talking about the time of the Ari and Hasidus and all that. But regardless of those few last centuries, things that go back 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 years, they're very Kabbalistic in their origin, right? Bringing it to the masses. And to have a prayer that is also analytical, that sounds, I mean, that sounds like a very Kabbalistic way of looking at it. And also, there are people who, even after they studied all of the Kabbalah of the Ari, even after they were immersed in it very, very deeply, when they came to pray, they prayed as if they were small children, you know? Again, going back to Hitbodedut. Hitbodedut, that's what it's about. That's what it's all about. Rabbi Nachman said that there is no virtue that you cannot acquire, there is nothing that you cannot attain that's positive. Nothing that you cannot attain without Hitbodedut. Hitbodedut is you can get there through fasting, and you can get there through, doing different things and so many different prayers and limiting yourself in this and that, but Hitbodedut can cut through everything. if you speak to the Most High God on a daily basis, like I'm speaking to you right now, that's the path to the greatest attributes, to the best virtues, because you reveal you to yourself. Just like what Bob Marley said about marijuana. He said, when you smoke herb, you reveal you to yourself. In the very same way, that ongoing dialogue, that vocal meditation of Hitbodedut does exactly that. It reveals you to yourself. That's why it's also highly therapeutic, and it's you talking to God, and it's you talking to yourself, because you are the image of God, right? And you're talking to the Creator through that which is sustaining you. I was also reading yesterday in that same part of Pardes Limonim about the mouth and the teeth and the tongue, and he was talking about how, not the teeth, the mouth and the tongue and the lips, and he was talking about how, because he considers the mouth to be the vacant area when you open up your lips, and the lips represent two different things, right? And there's the higher mouth and the lower mouth, but he was talking about the tongue, something I didn't think about until then. The tongue has 2 points to it, right? There's a point that reaches the end of the lips, so to speak, or the beginning of the lips, however you want to look at it. And there's a point that goes all the way back, right, to that point where the esophagus starts, something along those lines. And he says that the tongue is the great connector. The tongue is the great connector between that higher and lower parts of you, where you have the vocal cords that are over here. And then you have speech, which is very, very, very precise way of cutting up the sounds and the utterances in order to make something intelligible. And it's the tongue that facilitates this in a very big way, because it reaches it's on both ends, right? It reaches the higher and the lower part of you, and that makes the speech possible. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but it was interesting. I hadn't thought of the tongue in such a way. And we know that in Proverbs, it says that life and death, the tongue holds life and death, right? Beyad halashon. By the hand of the tongue they are grasped, life and death. Now, over there, he obviously also means that watch what you say, because what you say can be good and what you say can be wicked. So it can bring you to life and it can bring you death. You need to watch what you say. But also, if you're thinking about it in a conceptual way of us being speaking, right? Not just alive like other animals, but we use speech, and speech being that which was the first revelation of God that brought creation into existence, and we, in the image of God, also create worlds with our speech, and the tongue being that thing which connects that part of us which is unintelligible to the part which makes things intelligible, something along those lines. It's very, very interesting. Okay. Sustenance, said Sneezer, being from Father and the third guiding spirit. Oh, I see, I see, I see. So you're talking about that idea in Christianity of a trinity, and that there's the sustenance and the guiding spirit and children. Okay, I hear you. Sure. Hey, Robert Harrison is here. How you doing? How you doing? James Bong says, it may seem like a coincidence, but not to me, LOL. Well, I don't believe in coincidences. I mean, obviously, occasionally I'll throw it out and say, whoa, what a coincidence. But I don't really... Whoops, I'll mute my... Ooh, a scammer. Somebody's trying to scam me. That's too bad. Hello. Okay. I don't know what you mean, but all right. Oh, really? Cool. I was wondering, actually, recently. Okay, let's continue.
So who was scamming you?
Do you also know the tree of death, HN? Yes, there is a corresponding tree of death. The thing is that the tree of death, it's only in the 7 lower sfirot. It's only in the 7 lower it's only in the 7 lower revelations or emanations. The top 3, the higher 3, the Keter Chochma Binah, right, which represent that which is outside the head and the 2 halves of the brain, or the hair of the Nazarite as well, in some way. That is something that is kind of untouchable. Over there is no death. And So I do know the tree of death, and they show them many times as a mirror image. But, but, even though they do say that there is, let's say, arich anpin shebaklipa, right? Rabbi Nachman says this, and many others before him said it. But there is the tree of death, the halls of the tree of death, right? The heichalot haklipot, as it's known, those halls of the husk, the other side, right? That other side is not something that is not something that is perceived in any way through the top three, right? The top three sfirot, those are not touched by death, not touched by judgment, let's say, by the other side. Although in Bina, the mother, the third, there is that idea of much like a mother who is able to become, right, a woman who is able to become impregnated and then give life to something outside of her that is later disconnected from her when you cut the umbilical cord and it becomes its own thing. And even then, it still gets its sustenance from her breast and that whole thing. But I digress. The tree of death, it can appear as 10 sfirot inverted. But when you come really down to it, death has nothing to do with the top three sfirot, with Keter Chokhmah Bina. There is only life. There is only the union of Abba ve'Ima, right? Of the higher father, the higher mother, the higher masculine, the higher feminine, that are always in union. And over there's continuous life. And it's that idea of, what do they say about Bina? That it is not judgment, but judgment awakens from it. In other words, much like a woman, right, that's a female human, can bring forth through her body a human male, even though she isn't one, but she can do something she can create something that is different from her. Or even if it's not male, I just gave that as a very plain example of how the woman can bring about into life something that is completely different from her. In the very same way, Bina has the root of judgment, but it itself is not any kind of judgment whatsoever. Right? She is not din, but dinin mit'arin mina. Judgment can be awakened because Bina has this part of her that touches with the father and with the crown. And in those places, there is only life. And so, for Bina being one of the Gimel Rishonot, one of the first three Sfirot, the tree of death, right, the Heichalot HaKlipot, that whole thing, they do not touch there. So even though I know that there are Kabbalists who speak of Arich Anpin Shebaklipa, meaning the crown of Klipa, right, the highest form of the other side, of the evil side, of the judgment, of the left hand, right, the unholy side, let's say, still, the place where all of those klipot, the place where all of those dinim, the place where that other side comes into being, is only from that part of Bina that connects to the seven lower sfirot. Meaning that in the Gimel Rishonot there is no death. So that was probably also a ramble. Robert asks, did you do that reaction to Ezekiel's vision? No, because I'm doing it, I said it in the beginning, because I'm doing this now on my phone and not on the laptop. I didn't, I couldn't bring the, I couldn't right now bring the streaming software online. I just wanted to go live here on my phone, but I will do it at some point. I'd like to do it anyway at some point. So I haven't done it yet, to answer your question. Sneezer says, I think my comment got blocked. He says pi, but you could break it into a mnemonic phrase. Gimel Aleph Dalet Aleph Hey Tet Bet Vav. A mnemonic phrase, which can be poetically read as Ga Da Hat Bo. Circle it. It is in him. That's not that that is not what that means. The only two words that are actually Hebrew words in those four are hat and bo. But ga and da, gimel aleph, dalet aleph, are not a word. They are not a word, so I'm not sure where you're going with this. So neither continues, he says, or did the name for the color purple come from its only source, Phoenicians? I'm not sure. See, because I don't know anything about the Phoenicians, and the things that I may have known in the past, I don't know them now. Let's put it that way. Robert says, 1 Timothy 1, verse 4, King James Version, he says, neither give her to fables and endless genealogies which minister questions, rather than godly edifying, which is in faith, so do. So are you referring there to Gematria? Is that what you're referring to when you say that? As you know, I'm not versed at all in the New Testament, so you'll have to clarify that for me. One more thing God allowed David to do, says Robert. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. James Bong says, yes, they coexist to me. I hear you, right? Prayer mode and analytical thought. Yeah, I can see how they can coexist. I am less of that sort, but it's definitely a way to go about it. It's certainly a way to go about it, and a lot of people do that very thing. They become very analytical, very precise, especially when you take into consideration the fact that the prayers are supposed to be sacraments, sacrifices, much like that were brought forth in the temple and the tabernacle. And so over there, as we know, everything was very precise. The priests, Levites, and Israelites each had their own job, each had their own thing, and they had to be very precise. And the priests, in what they are thinking as they are butchering, as they are bringing it to the altar, as they are eating, the Levites with their song, the Israelites with their fast and their prayers, which were done continuously in the temple, each week they would trade off, right? There would be a changing of the guard, if you will, on Shabbos. One more thing God allowed David to do, says Robert, was put the ark in the city of David and not Moses' tabernacle. Why? Because David was so close to God. Well, I mean, the tabernacle, yes, it was, right, in the tabernacle ever since they crossed the Jordan, right? It was in the Gilgal, and it was in Shiloh, and it was in Givon, I believe. And then, right, at that point, right, Gilgal, Shiloh, Givon, was it in one more place? I think it was those three places. And then David brought it to the city of David. That's right, that's right. David was so close to God. Well, Moses was close to God in a way that nobody was up until then and since, right? He's the great bridge. He's the father of all prophets, even though there were prophets before. And right, he's that speaking of the tongue, right? That speaking of the tongue that connects the higher and lower, the back and the front of this mouth. And we have Moses, who was hard of speech, right? Kavad peh v'chvad lashon, the Torah says, that he was of a heavy mouth and a heavy tongue. And he is the one who was able to do amazing things. And yet his speech and his tongue, it was something, there was a kind of disorder there, if you will, something abnormal, or rather non-mainstream. And David, representing Malchut, representing the final emanation, the final sphera, the kingship, the kingdom, and him being a flawed character, and we see this in the Bible, it allowed him to be that warrior poet and that great king, and to, eventually bring the Ark of the Covenant. Now we know there were two arks, right? There was one that Bezalel built, and there was one that Moses built, right? There was one that would go out with them to war, and there is one that would remain inside of the tabernacle in the holiest of holies. One of them had the the actual covenant, right? The stone tablets, the golden one, right? With that Bezalel built. Okay, James Bong says analytical thought is a gift from Hashem to me, so that's how I correlate them. Yeah, hey, if you know, if you're able to know how your mind works, and you're able to gear your prayer in such a way where it's not something that's forced and that's coming to you in a kind of unnatural way, that it really does go and flow alongside your way of thinking, that is all the better. That is all the better because, I mean, God doesn't need prayer. God needs nothing. It is us who, through our speech, through our actions, through our prayer, through our devotion, um, we are able to make change in ourselves and in the world, right? That idea of sending things from bottom to top and having things come down again from top to bottom, sending our bread upon the water. So if you have that and you see it as a gift from Hashem, that is wonderful. Go with that. That is awesome. Robert says, I think God loves your pray from your heart to Him rather than a recited prayer already written. Well, yes, but what I'm saying is that there is something in the recited prayer, especially by a congregation, that's already written down, because baked into the pre-written prayers are all of those divine connections, are all of those appealings to the revelation of God to manifest through this sphira, that sphira, the relationship between them. And so if you're looking at it, let's say Kabbalistically, it makes perfect sense. I mean, if we take Shachrit, the morning prayer, for example, that has four very clear parts to it, and there's an elevation of the worlds as it's known, much like what happens on Shabbat, corresponding to, not corresponding, as opposed to, let's say, the rest of the working days, where there's something there that causes an elevation. Now, with Shabbat, it happens through the very nature of the day. And with the prayer, it happens because you go from one step to the next step, culminating in the Shmona Esrei, the silent prayer, the silent meditative prayer. So I think God loves both, if you will. The question is, right, tefillah, they say, prayer is avodah shebalev, worship of the heart. And so I think both have great merit. Hitbodedut has great merit. The spontaneous prayer, the spontaneous personal dialogue has great merit. So does the written prayer. Even if it's not you who wrote it, even if you're only reciting it, even if you're only on your own, not in a congregation, and even if you know nothing of the sfirot and have no idea what to think of when and how, and again, the breath and the movements, all of those things that the Kabbalists do, even if you have no idea, the fact that you are reciting these prayers, the Kabbalistic nature of it is baked right in. And if you imbue it with your sincere desire to better yourself and the world around you through your actions, that would suffice. Because I think there's a purity of heart that can imbue any kind of prayer with sincerity, with earnestness, with genuine seeking of betterment. We want this creation to thrive. We want us to thrive, to be better for ourselves and for those around us, right? And that ripples out. So I don't know if it's that God loves one more than the other. I think it depends on the individual. I love Bob Dylan's song Shooting Star, says Robert. I don't think I've heard that one, or maybe I did, but I didn't know it was called that. Bring heaven to earth, says James Bong. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Oh, wait a minute. Wait, it's just, oh, there it is. Okay, the chat just jumped for a second. Robert says, very much anticipated second reading of Brit Chadashah, the New Testament for HN from me. Yes, I know. You and other Christians and followers of Jesus who are watching the channel, I'm sure, want me to read that again. Ariel asks, why do you think beer is so unpopular among Jews compared to other spirits? Is there an Israeli beer brewery yet? Yeah, there are many beer breweries in Israel, micro breweries. Well, I don't know if many, but there are plenty. There's also a Scotch whiskey distillery. A friend of mine who I went to yeshiva with over 20 years ago, he loves whiskey, and he opened up a distillery. I think it's called the Jerusalem Distillery. I don't think beer is unpopular. Look, Israelis love beer. I don't know if it's unpopular among Jews. If you're talking about Jews as a group, maybe it is unpopular. Maybe many Jews only, they partake of the Kiddush wine and that's it. I don't know. I know that, look, back when I was still drinking, I loved Gold Star, a good dark lager. Just the wheat, the taste of the barley, I mean. No, the wheat? No, the barley. The taste of the barley just comes right through. And I've tasted in the past wheat beers. I did not like them as much. They're lighter. I can see why people like them, but I was a sucker for Gold Star, man, be it bottled or from the tap. Robert says, why do you think withholding strong drinks makes the Nazir holy? Well, because strong drink, shechar, as it's known in the Torah, has to do with grapes. It's the abstaining from grapes and all grape products that contributes to the holiness of the Nazarite man or woman, because the grapes represent the dark side, right? The side of judgment, the left hand. And so, right, as I've said repeatedly when this came up, when I had different videos on the Nazarite ship and the Nazarite vow and the different components of the vow, so I think it makes the Nazir holy because when you abstain, practically speaking, from that origin of judgment, unlike the priests who only abstain from wine while they are in service, the Nazir or Nazira are commanded to abstain from all grape products, not the husk, not raisins, not dry grapes, not fresh grapes, not not strong drink that has grapes in it. Right? That's the strong drink. It's not alcohol. It's not any kind of alcohol. You can have fermented drinks or brewed drinks, but not if they have grapes in them. And I, as you know, those of you who follow, I simply decided to abstain from all alcohol and cut it all out. But the Nazir or Nazira are allowed to drink everything else except for grape products or strong drinks that have grapes in them. And the strong drink mentioned in Numbers 6, the shechar, is a drink that has grapes in it. Sanizar says, the tree of death, each klipot, is a shadow of the sfirot, the shadow of the crown is confusion, chaos. So yes, like I said, you have that inverted tree, right? You have, let's say, that inverted tree, like a shadow, if you will, like you said, where you have God's light coming through the 10 sfirot, and in doing so, it casts a shadow, and that shadow is there because of the light. If there was no light, there would be no shadow. The shadow is there as a counterpart to the light. They both coexist. But the keter, right? The sfira, the unholy sfira, if you will, of keter, does not correspond exactly to the proper sfira of keter, or chokhmah, or bina. It's the 7 lower sfirot where they have attached themselves. Because in those places there is major duality. And right, the klipot are that duality. It's that shadow that accompanies the light. Robert says, if you check your DMs, that's where Ezekiel's vision is. Yes, I saw that you sent a DM. And like I said, I do want to do it. I do want to do it. Ariel says, is that ancient date tree variety they resurrected in Israel producing fruit yet? I think it is. I actually think it is, but I don't know offhand. It is at least 7 years old already. I believe that it is. Ariel continues, bet a date from that tree would cost more than taking an American girl out for dinner. Are American girls known for eating a lot at dinner? Bwahahaha, said Sneezer. Robert says, one thing, HN, that always stumped me is the Lord struck the Israelite dead for securing the ark from falling, but the Philistines could take it all over the place. Well, 2 things. First, it was Uzzah, right? Uzzah was the one who grabbed the Ark of the Covenant because he thought that the cattle that was pulling it, well, not the cattle, Shamtu Habakar, I guess it is cattle. Anyway, the animals that were carrying it, he thought that it was about to fall, so he grabbed it. and they called the place Peretz Oza, named after him. And so our sages say that the reason, or at least one of the commentators says, the reason why Uzzah was struck dead is because he ought to have had enough faith in the Most High God and the Ark of the Covenant and not intervene. He should have had enough faith and belief that the Ark of the Covenant would not fall. And so he did the wrong thing. By thinking I, a human being, need to intervene, that was the wrong way of thinking, and that's why he was struck dead. That's one way of putting it. The second thing is that you must remember, I don't know if you recall, but the tribe of Levi, there aren't many. And it says, Shehaya ha'aron mechale b'hem. It was the Ark of the Covenant that would consume them, that would kill them. Priests and Levites would not be able to act properly around the ark, and it would strike them dead. This was an ongoing thing. You know what? I'll give you the precise. Hang on a second. I want to know that I'm saying it properly. Shehaya ha'aron mechale bahem. Yes. So it says the ark, or the divine revelation that was present inside of it, would bring about the penalty of death for people that went against its holiness, or which sinned and were, well, let's put it this way, yes. And they say that this was very much the case when the ark was traveling around the desert for 30-something years, right, close to 40 years, and that the Levites, traditionally from my family, right, our ancestors, my forebears would be the ones who would carry it. There's even, speaking of the ark not falling, there's even that opinion that the Levites would indeed do this, but that the ark would not touch them and it would be sort of hovering above them to some degree. So even though they did have the two pillars, sticks, carrying rods, whatever you want to call it, the Levites would have their hand there, yes, but it would be levitating above them. Anyway, the Lord struck the Israelite Uzzah dead. And he also struck priests and Levites dead because of the Ark of the Covenant and the holiness. This is something that's depicted in in a lovely cinematic way in Raiders of the Lost Ark. We saw what happened to them Nazis, eh? As for the Philistines could take it all over the place, not exactly. As we know, when the Philistines were fighting, right, and Eli, the high priest, when he gets the word that the ark was taken and he breaks his neck, he falls, he breaks his neck, and he dies, the Philistines in that area, the Philistines in that area... No, wait, I'm confusing two different things. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that the Philistines, they would have, whether it's diarrhea, like constant diarrhea, or hemorrhoids, or something attacking their anus in one way or another. I'm trying to remember. Let's see if I'm remembering it correctly. Philistines, hemorrhoids. Yes, the biblical account in Samuel where the Philistines suffered from a plague of emerods, an archaic term for hemorrhoids, after capturing their Ark of the Covenant from the Israelites. According to the story, says Google, the affliction spread to the towns where the Ark was taken. So, I remembered it pretty much that way, where even though they took the covenant, the Ark of the Covenant, they were not spared. Not exactly. Okay, let's continue. Jews always judged more harshly, said Sneezer to Robert. Right, it's that sort of thing. Right? In other words, quoting the Talmud there, or the Midrash, where it's like, the prophets say, I don't remember which prophet it was, says that we are like children to God, and in the very same way, I mean, you could look at it as Israel or the human race compared to other creations, but however you want to look at it, there is this idea that those who are closest to God are judged even more harshly. Something along those lines. So yeah, Sneezer is right about that. All right. Oh, where were we? The chat jumped again. Hang on a second. Oh, okay, here. Of course, they think God is. So wait. It seems. Wait, I'm not sure. Sneezer, are you reacting to someone else? Pick a judgmental God, be judged. Yeah, I suppose that's true. El is not a judge. El is an allower, unconditional love in purest form. Well, no, it's not quite the purest because El corresponds to the right hand, right, and to the attribute of Chesed. And we have an attribute called Chesed, but even Chesed, which is the first of the seven lower Sfirot, is already a duality. It's the right hand as opposed to the left, right? It's Chesed as opposed to Din. So it's not its purest form, but it is unconditional love in the way that it the father of Chesed is Chochmah, right? That there is that idea of the root of Chesed, the root of El, if you will, and that has an even purer form, being of one of the higher Sfirot. What's in your playlist nowadays? Asks Robert Harrison. What is in my playlist? Um, Podcasts mainly. I've been listening the past few days to the podcast Soft White Underbelly. Some of the interviews there just rip your heart right out. I've been listening for the past few days among those interviews, and the reason why I got back into listening to those interviews that I have been listening to in Soft White Underbelly is because James Sexton, the divorce lawyer, gave another interview a short while ago, and I've been listening to him on and off the past few days, going back to prior interviews that he had and podcasts he appeared on. I love the way that he speaks. I love his views on love and marriage. I really think that there's a lot that can be learned from somebody who's been a divorce lawyer for 25 years. I haven't read his books, but I love the way he speaks. He's got that great energy and he's humble. He really is, at least in his dialogue. He's able to give very balanced views. He's a good speaker anyway. So that's on my playlist. As for I've been playing more guitar recently. The two older kids are want to learn guitar, so we have a couple here. I need to get a new guitar. I need to get like a very, very trash, crap guitar, so I won't care if something happens to it. Not because I don't care about quality. I need to get myself a new guitar, a new six string. But yeah, so I've been playing a little bit more guitar recently, and I love it that we're a musical house. I do. So what's in my playlist? Same old, I suppose. A lot of alternative rock, a lot of classic rock, a lot of psychedelic rock, but more podcasts these days. More interviews and podcasts. What's in your playlist, good people? And Robert Harrison, what is in yours specifically, since you asked? Okay, let's see. James Bong says, oh, I'm sorry, Sneezer says, giver of free will, though using free will also only takes you longer to understand. So you're referring to to the name of El as the giver of free will. Now, what's your source? I'm curious of what your source is on that. Oh, so James Bond gave us the stats. Beer breweries, around 60 or 70. Wineries, 300, 350. Spirit distilleries, 10, about 10. Wow. Okay, well, it's good to know. I had no idea. I would think that there's more spirit distilleries, but the rest seem on point. Sneezer says tree of death is a place to become lost on your way through the tree of life. Again, tree of death, he says, is a place to become lost on your way through the tree of life. You'll have to break it down for me. Dumb it down for me a little bit. What do you mean by your way through? Because that makes a big difference. Because, I'm not sure what you mean. Robert says, I think it's because when you abstain from things the world indulges in, people can tell you're set apart, not as far as I'm better, but I'm consecrated to the Most High. If you indulge, then no different. Well, yes. The Nazarite ship, with its initial prohibition on defilement of death, cutting the hair, things related to grapes, you are supposed to consecrate yourself in these ways to the Most High God and wear the crown of the consecration of God on your head. And in that sense, yes, that's how you're showing your separation. However, we know that there are Samson Nazarites like myself who are not commanded to abstain from defilement of death, right, of a corpse. And there are Nazarites who are bald. So the hair is not an issue there, so you can't really tell them apart. Then it's simply then it's simply the grapes, right? What they partake of in their cup, in their plate. And this, I think, all of Israel, we are commanded to keep kosher, to keep the laws of purity of food. And in that sense, it's not just the Nazarite that is set apart and consecrated in how he or she eat and drink. It's also in all of Israel in how we eat and drink, right? We eat kosher food, and there's, again, the grace, the blessings, where you can also separate yourself from others who might simply be eating without giving proper thought before, after, during, I don't know. But yes, Nezer, right? It's a crown of consecration, and you are set apart. But to some degree, all of Israel is set apart. To some degree, all of humanity is set apart. It depends on your point of view and your angle. Sneezer says, thus, by understanding the tree of death, you can see why you're dead and rebirth. Christ is the Sfirot covering the void. See, Sneezer, I'm not a Christian, so you're coming at it from it seems that you're coming at it from a more Christian point of view, and it's really lost on me, unfortunately, because I don't quite know what you're saying. So you'll have to either make it a bit more Hebrew or dumb it down for me. Yes, says, hello there, 47844. Yes, hello to you. Satan, his shadow. Okay, are you well? He asks. Yes, I am well. I am very well. And on that note, it's been an hour and about 14 minutes now, and I want to give thanks to all of you good people out there, those watching now, those watching later, people who came and went, people who are sticking around. I deeply cherish, I do, the subs, the views, the likes, the comments, the questions, the engagement, the way that you're enriching me, the way that we have this ongoing digital dialogue is lovely and wonderful. I don't take it for granted at all that you take time out of your day, your evening, your night, whenever, wherever you are watching this. It's awesome, and I deeply appreciate your time, your kind and gentle attention. I hope that I'm providing even a modicum of value or entertainment of some kind, because I know that I'm getting a lot out of it. I always enjoy going live. I always enjoy the correspondence. It's lovely. So I hope you are well, all of you out there. And now, wait, I'll just put the timestamps on here to see when he said that. Yes, said this about 15 minutes ago. 15 minutes ago, so I don't know if he's here, I don't know if he's not here, but how are you, yes? And how are you all? Sneezer says, Jesus says, embody me and become one. Satan says, obey me and be free. Well, yeah, that idea of freedom, right, where the satanic, if you will, and I use that term very loosely, in the way that you might use it, that kind of Satan is You'll be free to do everything you want, right? Do as thou wilt, right? Do whatever you want. But the Hebrew, the Torah's way of looking at it is by limiting yourself within the commandments of the Most High God. That is where true freedom is. You might think that you're boxing yourself in when in fact you are giving yourself the freedom to transcend all of that, right? It's the freedom to do something and not the freedom from limitation. No, my mistake. It's the freedom from limitation by transcending the limits. Right? Do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, I've mentioned it before, and right now I'm probably just butchering my speech because it's a little bit late. It's 10:30 p.m. here in Jerusalem. Maybe this is a good time to say goodbye. Maybe this is a good time to say goodbye because yes, I think I will say goodbye. I will continue this chat hopefully next time. I'd definitely like to. Or maybe I will start the next live stream with the proper streaming software here, and I'll do the one of the reaction videos. I don't know if ones that Sneezer told me to do or asked me to do, or one that Robert asked me to do. And Sneezer, I hope you don't take offense if I go for the Ezekiel one first. Um, but I don't know. I will. I'll take a look at the things that you sent. I'll take a look at the things Robert sent, and I don't know which one I'll do first. Maybe I don't know, or at all. But see, I'm rambling. I can feel my mind going. Brrrr. So I will say goodbye and good night from Jerusalem. Thank you all. I hope you are well. Be blessed. Be a blessing to yourself and to others. May we cling to the tree of life and not the tree of death. And we are in a world of good and evil, but may we be able to make the right choices at the right place, at the right time, to ascend and to transcend through our actions, through our words. Let's be good to each other, and let's strive to be that image of God in fullness, in fullness. Until then, good night from Jerusalem.